what is it like when you are in the water and you're surrounded by these creatures? I gotta imagine it's a very, I gotta imagine
It's
it's a
scary
crazy,
as hell.
yeah.
No, I do. I mostly when I encounter them these days, I tend to be on land. I go to places where I know that they frequent and I can see them from land. But I still do go out and kayak quite a bit. I don't go out kayaking with the intent of seeing orcas, but I always kind of hope they will show up. Um, and yeah, I've been doing it for quite a few years. And I got to say, universally, even though I've been doing it for years, when they show up, my whole body just goes, because it's like that's a big 6 foot fin, and this animal weighs 32,000 is 32 feet long, weighs 14,000 pounds, and can kill me if he wants to instantly. I mean, it's just a very much a natural sort of physical reaction you have to them, and I have to do deep breaths and get my heart rate down to normal and that sort of thing. And I also make sure that I'm out of their path. That's an important thing. If you're going to be around these animals, you have to behave ethically around them so you don't interfere with their hunting or anything else they're doing. Um, but yeah, it's a really profound experience because you suddenly realize you're just a tiny little flesh speck in the universe out there. And there are these huge creatures that are incredibly smart and incredibly powerful and make us look very, very, very puny indeed. So,
And yeah, I gotta imagine, like in a compromised situation like that, if you're in a kayak, my brain goes to, well, there has to, in the history, there has to have been some incident where an orca has injured somebody. But from what I've gathered, there's really nothing in the wild, right?
correct. There was an incident down in California back in the early 70s where a surfer, was laying on a surfboard out in Monterey and he got mistaken for a seal. Orca came up and grabbed his leg, pulled him under, and promptly let him go because he realized, oh, this is not a seal.
Wow.
And the guy swam up. He had the orca bite to attest to his encounter. He had to go to the hospital and get treated. Um, but that's the only encounter. There are odd little incidents that have happened throughout the years, including attacks on boats. There was a sailboat that was attacked in the Galapagos in the early 70s by a family that was on the sailboat, and their sailboat got attacked and sunk by a pod of orcas who had no interest in the crazy monkeys on board the boat. They just wanted to sink the boat and swam away after it sank. Similarly, there was the famous whaleboat Essex that was the basis of the whole Moby Dick story. It was based on a true story. The whaleboat Essex, who was sunk by a large sperm whale, and the crew took to the lifeboats, and they wound up having it was an incredible tale of survival because they were at sea for 40, 50 days. And they and on the second night that they were out, one of their lifeboats got attacked by an orca, and it ripped off a piece of the lifeboat, but and then swam away. So there are odd incidents that have happened throughout history, but they've never actually attacked and killed a human being in the wild. It's just they've attacked and killed trainers when they're in captivity. So,
Yeah, I was just about to go there now. Yeah, captivity is like a completely different story. And um,
mhm.
do do we know like the exact number of how many orcas have attacked people in captivity?
Uh, yeah, no, partly because SeaWorld has kept a real tight lid on any data about actual attacks on their trainers. They deny it, and they've only had to admit it when they actually killed a trainer, right? But over the years, SeaWorld orcas have attacked a number of trainers in a number of incidents, um, or at least harmed and injured these trainers, which is why finally, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration finally put down the law and said, no, your trainers cannot swim with these animals anymore. The thing about orcas is that they will swim 100 miles a day in the wild. They're used to extreme wide range. And so when they're put in these tiny tanks, it's an incredible act of deprivation because you're depriving them of the space they need. You're depriving them of their society, their culture, and for orcas, their bonds to their fellow pod members and their family members is really profound. As I say, that one of the realities of echolocation is that they have incredibly intimate social bonds. They see inside each other. They know each other, and they live with each other all their lives. So, one whale or one brain scientist that I spoke to said that, yeah, in a situation like that, their sense of self is going to be, and their identity is going to be radically different than ours, and it's going to be really bound up inextricably with all the other members of their pods. So when you take them out of those pods and put them in these tanks, you're depriving them of space, you're depriving them of their culture, you're acoustically depriving them because you're putting them in these little concrete enclosures that do nothing but echo back. And indeed, most orcas in captivity really cut down on the amount of echolocation that they do because it doesn't make any sense for them. They don't need to do that much echolocation, and they'll vocalize less too, unless there are members of they're able to develop a sort of captive pod among themselves, and then they start speaking to each other. Um, so yeah, you're depriving them in multiple ways, and it's really um, not surprising, especially with an animal that intelligent, that they would become incredibly frustrated and act out in anger. In fact, I think it speaks to the animals themselves that they haven't killed every trainer they ever came into contact with. At some point, you would think that they would act out. Certainly, if they were humans, they would have been acting out a lot more. And so it speaks to their incredible patience and mercifulness that they haven't.